I love State of Decay 2, and I'm someone who has always enjoyed zombie shooters, games like Left 4 Dead and the Resident Evil franchise, and games like Dead Island, World War Z, and Zombie Army Trilogy and stuff. So I've always enjoyed zombie shooters, but this game, State of Decay 2, is unique. It has all the elements of your typical zombie shooter, and then it has so much more than just that. I mean, the shooting is just a small part of the package. I'm personally not a big fan of management games where you have to manage a ton of stuff, but in the case of State of Decay 2, I really love the entire package because of the merger, the way the zombie killing action and these management things, they merge together to become something really attractive, really unique. It really hooks me, and it is really addictive. The way the game switches from, base management, inventory management to stealth and scavenging, which feels slow, to all-out zombie killing action, which is super fast-paced and arcadey. It really is a unique thing because you don't get bored of a single aspect of the game because you are always switching between all these aspects and they hold you and you never feel tired. And that is the unique part about this game, that you don't feel tired, and all these things, they combine together to create this amazing attractive package. And then this title has endless playability and so much content. I'm almost like 200 hours into it, and I'm still running into new weapons and variants of weapons that I never saw before, which is just insane. My overall experience with this title has been amazing, and this game has given me so many memorable moments and exciting moments, And one question that I have for you guys is, are your first three survivors, the very first ones with whom you started the game, are they still alive? Because I've lost all three of mine on Lethal Zone, and those were some really sad and memorable experiences. Phillips was the very first one to go. He died on my very first Lethal Zone run, which was a complete disaster in every way. A really funny thing about my first Lethal Zone run is that it was totally unintentional. I was actually going for Nightmare, but I somehow ended up selecting Lethal, and it was a disaster right from the get-go. We ran into a blood feral as soon as we spawned, and I lost a character right there, and the other two, they got infected, and Phillips, for the most part, in this Lethal Zone run, was lying in the infirmary because of plague infection, and I had no plague cure. So he was just barely hanging on because of the infirmary, which was allowing him to, barely remain alive. And later on, when I did manage to get some plague cure, he went out and died like a hero. That first Lethal Zone run was really, really special. It was intense, it was crazy, and I was constantly under pressure. It was a new community with only Phillips being the experienced guy, and he was the only one who brought something from standard zone in his inventory, and the items that I chose, they were not good. Some health items, and the gun that I chose was really bad as well. It was 7.62 SCAR, but with only a 21 round magazine, which was horrible. The list of problems included a lack of toolkits and the ability to craft toolkits, lack of plague cure, and the vehicles, they were badly damaged, and I had to travel on foot for the most part. And then a major issue occurred when Phillips died. He had our only crossbow on him, which was a vital weapon on Lethal Zone because everything else makes a ton of noise, even with suppressors. I ran a mission to retrieve items from his dead body but never found it. He turned into a zombie and he's probably still spooking around somewhere in Trumbull Valley. A really cool thing about this game is that you're gonna see several of your survivors who die turn into zombies, and after killing them you can retrieve items from their inventory, which is really cool. But in the case of Phillips, he just vanished. I never found him. I found several other survivors, turned and unturned both, but never found Phillips. And it was a big problem because I desperately needed the crossbow. But for the most part, I had to manage without a crossbow after Phillips died, and it was really tough and challenging. And then I continuously kept losing survivors, though I kept taking out plague hearts one after the other, and I kept losing survivors. It was a cycle that was going on constantly, and in the end, when my community got wiped out, we had just only 3 plague hearts left on the map. So yeah, I came pretty close even on a disastrous run. And yeah, I was constantly running out of influence because I was constantly hiring individuals from friendly communities to divide zombie attention while trying to take out the plague hearts, and it was a somewhat effective tactic, but they also got wiped out in the process. And in the end, I had no influence, and most of the friendly communities, they had been wiped out as well. So it was a disaster left, right, and center. It was this lethal zone run that really made me fall in love with this title. It was a failure, but a thoroughly enjoyable one, and it was a blast. It was tension and immersion at its peak, and I loved it. And the entire experience was amazing. It was like the writing was on the wall right from the beginning, but I was like constantly trying to delay the inevitable. And it was fun, ridiculously fun, addictive, and I still love, constantly switching between standard and lethal, because no matter how experienced you get on lethal, you cannot be too comfortable, and I love that. Then on my second lethal run, I lost Deadwood first of all. That one was going pretty good actually, and Deadwood's death was unfortunate, but it was my mistake obviously. But the most tragic of deaths came in the form of Jason. Deadwood had died because of my mistake. I jumped into a container trying to avoid taking damage from a Juggernaut, but a pack of ferals somehow got interested in me and they jumped into the container as well, and Deadwood was dead. But Jason, he died in the middle of my base in Meager Valley, the default base that you have right there. And it was not a siege. I came back from a plague heart mission. The zombies, they got interested in the sound of my vehicle. They came towards the base. I got inside the base. I was crouched. I was inside. And yeah, they started pouring in. And I had my gun trained on the door of the base. We were inside. And I never knew that the bloater had somehow entered the compound. And he just exploded right behind me. And yeah, Jason got infected. He died on the spot and he turned into a zombie. And in this attack, which was not even a traditional siege, I lost two survivors. One was a new one, but Jason was really tragic because he was the last one of my first three. And yeah, it was really sad. And it was a really unique thing that happened. All sorts of infected. We had ferals within the base, we had a Juggernaut in the base, and then all sorts of zombies were pouring in left and right, and somehow I barely managed to survive with just one survivor remaining from that unofficial siege. And it was a memorable experience, and it was a sad one too. I did end up succeeding with this lethal run, but only after I had lost two of my first three survivors, which was sad. And I love this game for these memorable experiences, and there are several others, and I'm sure you guys have them too. And yeah, the tension of my first lethal zone run is something that made me fall in love with this title. Jumping from standard to lethal is something amazing, and that is something that you should absolutely do expecting to see a failure, because that failure is something that is much more exciting than a successful run. And I had a blast with that failure, and love this title. A big shout out to Dan Redder for his amazing comments on my previous State of Decay 2 videos. Dan is someone who doesn't love zombie games but loves State of Decay 2. This game has won him over, and that tells you a lot about this title, the quality of this title. And I could feel his excitement through his comments, and that's exactly how I felt when I first played this game. I've always loved zombie games, like I said earlier, and this game is now my favorite zombie game of all time because of the fact that it has all the action from a zombie shooter, but then so much more than just that. And since this title is not tied to a particular character or a narrative, it becomes a game that is all about you and your experiences, which is fantastic. And it's a game that you can come back to again and again and have a blast with it, and I love that thing. I myself took a break from the game for about 2 months, but I've recently jumped back into it with Heartland, and it is a separate mode which has a narrative unlike the campaign, and it is about a set of characters. It is some sort of story continuation from State of Decay 1, and it has some fairly unique things, and I'm really enjoying it. And I found some really cool weapons as well right in the beginning, which is really cool. And then the daybreak mode is something that I'm not in love with because I struggle with it, and I'll admit that. And I don't seem to get good at it with time, which is also something that I don't like. Do leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and let me know about the first 3 survivors of yours. Are they still alive? And if they are dead, I'm really sorry about it, but how did they die? And check out other videos on the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Peace out.